So anyhow, I then started looking in a multitude of directions, and again, the bottom line was, what is it that would scare the heads of government? Oh, and by the way, I say heads of government because I found out Russia in 2010 or 9, around that period of time, put out an internal to a mandate to have 5,000 smaller underground facilities. Actually, you could almost call them bomb shelters, if you will, survival or right?
Same thing.
But now not as big as the ones I'm talking about here in the United States, where
Right.
they got 18-wheelers and trains running around them. Okay, but they had a mandate to complete within 2013, January 2013, a couple years ago, to have 5,000 of these finished in Russia. Now, they do have some big ones, one of which, by the way, will hold 50,000 people underground in Russia in a mountain. All right, that's bigger probably. I think the biggest one we have is probably maybe pushing it to 20,000, but there's a couple of them that could handle 10,000 underground. But the one they have one that'll hold 50 to 60,000 people, and then several other smaller ones. The smaller ones literally are pretty much for not the elite. In other words, it's a secondary thing, maybe for the lucky upper crust, that to save some of the general public, but they're not really big, et cetera, et cetera. Now, so it reached a point where I'm saying, okay, and Europe also did the same thing. They've got many good-sized underground facilities. So the next question is, what's going on? Why was it that all the thieves up in the Congress and the Senate, and et cetera, in the military, upper crust, why did they all of a sudden stop lining their pockets directly and worry about underground? Why would they go underground? And so that's where we linked and put together the obvious, which was that the Nibiru, Planet X, is heading back. And that was, in fact, the reason for going underground. Now, at the same time, all along, going back to the 90, 95, and that period of time, was when the government was started supplying the sheriff's department and all of the different military sheriffs and police stations, et cetera, around with military equipment, grenade launchers, armored vehicles, water tanks, machine guns, tanks, bullets, weapons of all sorts and everything. They started putting these out to police stations and sheriff departments, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, and everybody said, well, what's going on with that? What's the connection of that? And the connection is this. And by the way, also when I checked into the Vatican, they're completely up to speed on this. That was why they put in the big infrared telescope in Arizona called Lucifer. The reason they put that in and everything, it's all part of and parcel to this whole thing of keeping an eye on it. And they have been aware of it for many, many years and still are, and participating at the highest level of keeping this thing quiet. Now, here's the problem. And because a lot of people say, well, when are they going to tell us? When can we, first off, they say, when can we see it? Next one is, when's it coming? When do we expect it to be coming back in real time? And when are they going to tell us what's going to, this is bad. We're not going to know about it. Well, the truth is, no, you are not going to know about it. And you will never have a formal, my fellow American speech from the President of the United States unless it is at the very last point in time, and at that time, he and everybody else will be underground already. Okay, they'll be gone, and the speech that would come out, if there ever is one, will be literally the last day's speech, so to speak, before it's about to hit, or it's not going to hit. That's a I don't mean to say that, but it's coming close to passing close to Earth. They have no intentions of ever telling the people of the globe that that's happening for real. So
they're going to use it to depopulate the planet if they want to, supposedly.
right. So no. So here, but here's
No.
here's what happens. Here's what's physically happening and why this comes back to the weapons going to the police force. What they're going to have to do is declare martial law in the United States before the Planet X Nibiru is starting to be seen in the sky. Once it's seen in the sky, headed in to go around the sun and then back out for another several hundred or couple thousand years, whatever it is, all right, when it comes in, it'll be first seen as a star, like a new star. And it'll be coming in, it'll get brighter and brighter and bigger, and it will take about 3 to 4 months from the time it's seen in the sky for it to come around to its closest point, passing around the sun and then headed back out. Now, again, I mentioned Gil Broussard, who has real good studies on this thing, has done, and he's the one who went to China and has been doing the complete scriptural thing and can match up every single event to this thing with documentation of ancient times around the globe. So this is not just a handful of idiots someplace coming up with a funny story. All right. So here's where it has always been when it came closest to where it actually passes and blocks the sun, does an eclipse of the sun for a brief period of time, and then goes on around and goes back out. All right. That has always been around March, April period of time. March the 25th to 27th is usually approximately the period of time of most close to the planet Earth. All right. So also the mathematics of this is that it would be probably seen in the sky in December. Now, originally, and now there are a lot of miscellaneous variables in this thing. Changes in the calendars, the calendars of antiquity. They changed their method of counting days, and like you said, how many days, and back then versus how many days now for a month, and all that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of little variables, and it's kind of a little bit. Again, I refer like to Halley's Comet. Give or take, in that case, it's only usually about give or take a week. That comes around 75 years. When you have one that has an orbit of an unknown, maybe like just say 350 to 3,000 years, the time of its return is always been, though, March and April, that period of time, the merger between March and April, and seen in December. I anticipated that we would see it this December, last month, all right? That did not happen. And I also noted that there was no martial law, although they're setting it up. They're setting that up really profusely. They have to simply come up with one of 2 or 3 ideas that will be accommodated by the American people to accommodate and accept a martial law.
Right.
All right, and I'll get to
either an economic collapse or ISIS.
Yeah, and I'll get to that in just a second. But the point in time, here's the point. There always has been a March, April kind of period of time on the previous 2 passes of this thing that have been found in the writings of biblical times and the writings of antiquities of the Chinese monks, the monks in Tibet, and the Chinese people that actually were the astronomers for the Emperor of China. And they were very serious, and over there, if the astronomers did misinterpretations, the emperor cut their heads off. So they weren't making up anything either. They were pretty serious going back 1,000 years or whatever. So here's my point. When people say, when is expected? All right, those people, even that differ with each other as to whether it's a 350 or a 3,500 time period, that doesn't make any difference. Politically, on the globe, the underground facilities are finished. They are still working on a lot of them, but most of them are finished. If they needed them next week, they could use them, all right? That's my point. They are filled with food. They are still putting food in and doing everything, final touch-ups on all of them. One of them, by the way, was the old NORAD facility that had been in the Granite Mountain for years.
Ah.
Unbelievable secured location, but that's an old one. And they went in, closed it down a while back, about a year and a half ago, did some changes to it, and they've now moved back into it. They're using it. However, NORAD, the normal old function of NORAD, is not being carried out anymore. It is another one of the underground facilities. The newer ones are astronomical. They're mind-boggling, like I said, with maglev trains, food growing ability, interfacing connections between one side of the nation to the other side in terms of underground roadways. And China also, I left them out. China has done the same thing. China started a few years ago, and they have thousands of miles of underground facilities. They built digging. We have a huge tunneling machines. And people say, how in the world do they dig into the granite mountain and finish this in a year? They have underground digging equipment that I also have. By the way, I have to say this. All of this that I'm talking about and much, much more, including photographs, pictures, live footage of every one of the nations, everything I'm talking about, every single thing I've touched on base on here is completely covered in the DVD that's available to people that I put out approximately a year ago now, just at the beginning of this last year. It's called Incoming, and it's available on my website, bobfletcherinvestigations.com. You can buy it. It's $24.95. It's 4 hours, double disc DVD report, has everything and answers every question. Now, let me get back, and we pay the postage on it.
Good.
All right. So the point is now that the underground facilities in China, like I said, thousands and thousands of miles, they have the machines, which the machines are so big, they're tunneling machines. They go into the side of a mountain, and when they come back out with just a single one of these machines, you can drive an 18-wheeler into the mountain. Okay. Then when they go back the second time, they have big enough that you now have coming and going of an 18-wheeler. Two 18-wheelers can pass with the two passes of this thing. The Chinese, which I have pictures of, as a matter of fact, also, the Chinese built theirs with one unit that is two of our biggest ones side by side, and then another 25% larger in diameter in the middle of the two. It's a three-headed boring machine to go in through the side of the mountain, and so big that you can, when it backs out, you could drive two 18-wheelers down and have a dance in the middle of the highway. That's how big it is. Unbelievable. I have all of that in the DVD, as a matter of fact. Now, I have to mention another point that fits into the whole puzzle, and that is a thing called a seed vault. Back in 2012, in Norway, actually, or near Norway, they have an island where they put a seed vault, and it was an internationally cooperative seed vault where they go into the side of the mountain. They have seeds to be able to replicate and regrow every growing plant on the globe of any value at all, and it's millions of these seeds. Actually, I think it's billions. Billions of those seeds are in the seed vault. And of course, you can look it up. Just look up seed vault. Actually, seed vault and write seed vault Norway or underground seed vault, and it'll come up. You got plenty of information on it if you want to look at it. Just on the computer. That's cooperative among the nations. So what we have is all of the very upper level, upper crust people of all of the globe know about it, know it's coming. They have an idea when it's coming because their intention, again, their contractual agreements with the survival food people was to make sure they had most of these places filled as of 6 months ago. So they're not putting the food in there for 10 years, 20 years, 5 years away. They're putting the survival foods in there today so that it could be used next week, next month, 6 months, or a year from now.
Okay, so Bob, could this be to prepare for some sort of nuclear war that they're interested in?
No. It's way beyond. The problem with this, it's way beyond. There probably would never be a nuclear war because we, the United States, for one thing, could stop off any possible nuclear conflict in one day. Totally stop it and finish it off, okay? Terminate it. That's not going to happen. This is not something that we idiots called mankind on Earth are generating ourselves. It's not going to be a war. It's not going to happen. What sense would it do for Russia to totally destroy the United States and never be able to use the property for 100 years because of nuclear contamination? What point would there be to that?
Well, I couldn't tell you that. They don't make any sense to me. As far, I mean, the leaders of this planet are psychopaths. They don't really think
no. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you're true. You know, the only really true psychopath is that the North Korean screwball. You know, those poor people, and they don't even know what's going on.
These Islamic countries.
Yeah, well, the Islamic, but you know, here's the problem. I mean, no, there are no Islamic countries. Now we have that ISIS problem that we created, you know, and the idea that for them to come forward to us and say, "Oh, gee, they sure surprised us," you know, get out of here. That's stupid.
Right.
Surprise us with what? Oh gosh, they snuck in 150 tanks on the border of Yemen or on the border of Iraq or Iran, and we didn't see them? Get out of here. See, so that's all garbage. That's under a separate category. It's called BS. It's called false flag garbage. You know, you know. Now there's always a chance. Don't get me wrong. The idea of one screwball getting a briefcase nuclear bomb, which the Russians have. Russians have 100 of them that they've lost.
Really?
How does that make you feel? Now, it doesn't mean that they know how to set them. You know, make them happen. The Russians admitted a couple of years ago they lost 100 suitcase nuclear. Okay,
but
you know that's goofy, but that's a fact. All right, but the point is it's not for that, and I will maybe briefly explain what I mean by us terminating a nuclear war before it happens. I'll maybe mention that in a minute or two, and explain that. But the point is, the entire globe is all of a sudden, again, being done by the highest levels of our military and the highest levels of the corrupted government and in all governments. And of course, their thing. By the way, I had a complete direction I was going a few minutes ago, and we got away from it. The weapons. Why are they putting all of those weapons for? Actually, it's almost 20 years they've been sliding this stuff into these police departments. And what they're doing is saying, hey, guys, you know, we have some weapons available coming back from the desert. You know, we have some armored cars, we have some machine guns, we have hand grenades, we have gas launchers, and we have all of these things, and gas masks and bulletproof vests and armored cars and all this stuff. And they're asking the local sheriff in Omaha, Nebraska, if he wants to have a couple. So, you know, so at the police level, those guys love it. You know, I mean, they love the idea of saying, oh, wow, yeah, that's what I need. And we go in and hit these drug dealers in downtown Detroit, and we'll have armored cars, and we'll have this, we'll have that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But, I mean, they're just excited like a kid in a candy store.
Oh,
you know. And then they say, well, you know, we can't really afford that stuff. You know, we can't budget that. Okay.
Oh, of course not.
So, Uncle Sam says, well, what we'll do is we'll give it to you like almost free. And we'll set up some, you know, and we'll set up some kind of a pay-as-you-go deal. You know, you don't have to pay for it right away. Give you 10 years to pay for it, and get it to you for almost. We'll write it off down to almost nothing, and blah blah blah. We'll make sure it's working good before you get it, but you know, we'll do all that. So anyhow, the bottom line is they have placed all of this extraordinary amount of military gear in the police department. Now here's the little coup de grace to it. They say, now listen, we're giving you all this equipment for almost nothing. We just want you to sign an agreement that, or verbally is good enough for us, that when we call for your assistance, like in a time of a national emergency, if we ever have martial law or something that we have to declare, we want you to come on board with the wonderful new Homeland Security. You know, and be ready to answer and fully respond to the demands of Homeland Security. And they say, oh, yeah, sure, don't worry about that. That's great. We don't care. That's good. Sure, we'll do that. So what they're going to do is, and they've already got, now they have all this equipment is in the back parking lot of all these police all over, and some of it came up, a few months ago when they were complaining about, when they were having the black and the racial problems and police shootings of black kids and stuff like that,
Sure.
right? They complained, they said, hey, what's the deal here? We came out with a demonstration and they got military equipment and guys with helmets and all of this stuff. What is that? And they complained, the citizens complained about it, but they had no idea that of what it's for. And it's there for the point in time once it's certified. Once Nibiru, Planet X, gets close enough coming in on its return trip, then they can mathematically do the math, and they can say, here's the day it's going to be. Give or take 5 days. This is when it's going to be here. But it has to get close enough, and it has to be seen. It has to physically be seen, and all the rest of that too. Really, So what they're going to do though is they're going to have martial law in place. And it'll be on every major nation of the world probably the same week, all right? Because at no time are they going to come out and say, my fellow Americans, I have bad news. In about 30 days or 4 months, this big planet's going to come around, and an awful lot of everybody on the globe is going to die. Because here's what it's going to do. It's going to cause tsunamis like Noah's floods, because that's what created Noah's floods. It's going to cause electromagnetic impulses because it screws up the sun. It causes all kinds of problems with the sun itself, whipping around, even though it's only a couple of times bigger than Earth, maybe 5 times the size of Earth. But it has an effect. It's already having effect on the sun. And it'll cause... The biggest problem will be when it comes around, coming by the first time. Of course, it will do, like I said, a very long blocking of the sun. It will be a big, long solar eclipse. Then it will go on behind the sun. Now, coming with it is 2 or 3 planets of its own. We call them, not planets, excuse me, moons of Nibiru that are traveling with it and circling like its own little solar system, so to speak. And it will be dragging as much as 25 million miles of space junk behind it. Now, what will happen is it will pass around behind the sun. Then we will go through, because of our timing of our orbit around the sun, we will pass through the tail of that darn thing. And we will have extraordinary meteor showers, because what will, for all intents, appear to be meteor showers. We will be traveling through the junk that's trailing behind it. That will happen 2 times. It will happen the first time when it goes around, and then we will go through it, through the tail. Then it will come back, going around the sun in the back, and then headed back out to Never Land, towards Pluto again, so to speak, out to the far reaches of the solar system once again, and we will pass through it, the tail, a second time. And it will be 155 days is the mathematics that they have done on this thing, the people that are keeping their hand on it. 155 days, give or take a week, for it to go around and back out. So we will approximately hit 2 times, 155 days apart, unbelievable meteor showers, depending on how bad and profuse the size of the pieces that will make it through our protective shield, so to speak, and burn up in our atmosphere. It's an unknown factor. So you're looking at tsunami water from the gravity alone of this thing passing close by. We have to remember, we don't think, unless we're scientists, you don't think about the moon. The moon and the sun does a gravitational thing all the time, and it's what does our high and low tides. The water going in and out is being pulled by the moon and then released and then pulled again, and that constitutes the tides. When you have something that's several times the size of Earth passing fairly close in terms of astronomical measurements, coming fairly close to the Earth on 2 occasions, it will yank the water right out of the seabed. probably as much as 100 miles inland on every coast of the entire globe will probably be washed off.
Right before you came on, I spoke in detail about all this. And there's actually a couple of new theories I'm hearing that this orbit of Planet X isn't actually elliptical. It's more like a figure 8. So it's not going to. The claim is now that it's not going to pass us twice, but it's actually.
Well, astronomically, I believe it's a physical impossibility to be what we would call a figure 8. It's actually just a big elongated orbit. Now, and by the way, I was still skeptical in the middle of my investigation on this. Well, I didn't want to put my name. I didn't want to put my name on this thing. You know?
Right. Well, I don't blame you.
I mean, I really didn't. I really didn't. And then, but finally, eventually, it's like, this is what it is. You know, I mean, I don't see anything else that would fit into all of this stuff. Everything, including, the Pope and the underground seed thing and all the rest of that crazy stuff. It's just way, way too many things, and the only thing it could be would be some extraordinary known galactic kind of a problem, something that's totally out of control of the average, of human beings. This is some external problem that can't be settled, like between Russia and China and America or any of that kind of stuff. And all of that local politics related to all of that stuff. Right now, it's all like an ongoing show, for crying out loud, because they are scared at the highest levels on this darn thing, and that's all there is to it. They're just really spooked. But in terms of the orbit, one of the things that finally something that bothered me, because I thought, geez, they're talking about 3,000-year orbit, and I thought, God, that's like outrageous. That means this thing is so far out when it goes out. Maybe whether it's 200 years going out and then 200 years coming back, or if it's 1,800 years going out and then 1,800 years coming back, that would be the 3,500. All right. I'm thinking to myself, I'm not, like I say, not an astronomer. I know more about it now than I did, but the idea that kind of a giant orbit would exist and this darn thing would keep coming back seemed extraordinary to me. But then, lo and behold, back a few years ago, and I think don't somebody yell at me, jump on me on this, like in 1990s, no, I had people say, well, it wasn't 97, it was 92, who cares? Okay, but sometime around 97, we had, I think it was it the Hale-Bopp comet? I'm thinking off the top of my head.
Yeah, you're right. I think you're right.
Okay,
yeah.
All right. So there was this planet. I mean, a comet. Excuse me, a comet that came around. They saw it coming. They said, "Oh, hey, we didn't know about that one," and they named it Hale-Bopp under the name of two guys that found it. And it came in. It swooped around the moon. Around the sun. Went back on out again. It was pretty neat. They knew when it was going to arrive, and everybody watched it, and they got wonderful pictures and millions of. The tail on that was like 20 million miles. Okay.
Yeah, you're right.
All right. So,
I've got all the pictures sitting in front of me. So you got it right.
Okay. So now what happens though? When I looked at it, they said it's 4,200-year orbit.
Okay.
For the Hale-Bopp. So they didn't know about it. They saw it. They found it. It came in. It did go around the sun. It did its thing, and it disappeared, going back out. And they did the mathematics, and they said it won't be back for 4,200 years. So then right away I said, oh. So I had this little thing I was hanging on to myself personally that I thought 3,000 years was ridiculous, right? But now all of a sudden they say, uh-oh, there goes Hale-Bopp, and it's 4,200 years. So the idea that a real long, elongated orbit, like Hale-Bopp, is absolutely possible, legitimate, potential situation. So that through my one little thing I had left where I thought I could say, well, that's stupid, it can't last. No, I was wrong, and the bottom line is it is a legitimate. The possibility of a 3,000-year orbit is absolutely legitimate.
Yeah.
So
now,
here's
50,000 years or some crazy shit. And I just have one question left because we only have 10 minutes left. You mentioned earlier that no one has seen Nibiru. I mean, we're not seeing it in the sky in December and all that.
Right.
But I'm seeing I'm in a few video Nibiru groups, Facebook groups, And they're showing videos and
tell
photos.
About that. Yeah.
They're showing videos and photos of Nibiru.
Let me answer that
like
situation the best I can, all right?
Good.
I put in my DVD, I put some real good pictures of way out, things that had been shot and, that could or could not be, whatever. But it's, number one, it's infrared. If you don't have infrared equipment equal to the $20 billion one that they've got out there, and if you don't have one that good, the chances of you seeing or taking pictures is not happening until it gets in close. Follow me? All right. Once it's in close, then 10,000 amateur astronomers are going to see it in the same week, all around the globe.
I'm not talking about infrared. I'm saying that during the sun rises in the morning, people are.
No, I know. Okay, I know what you're talking about.
Where it's showing up as a second sun in the sky next to our sun.
Yes, and I understand that. Most of those are so you got to do just a size thing for yourself. First off, an awful lot of them are lens flares or something else. Okay, and there's some good ones. There are guys that said, no, I can prove that it's not a lens flare and this, that, and you see how this moves and that moves and everything. The bottom line is most of those are like the sun is the size of, let's say, a baseball at the end of your hand, your arm, a baseball, a standard softball, and the next to it is something like the size of a nickel, okay? And they're saying that's Nibiru, and it's got a funny color, and it's this and that. Okay, if it was that close, it would be doing such a number on everything already. And those types of pictures now were out 2 years ago, and it's still not here, okay?
Right.
That ain't going to happen. And like I say, according to all of the scriptures and the things where they actually have seen this darn thing come and go, and scratched it on the wall of the cave or whatever you want to say, or put it on the clay tablet. The bottom line was it was seen in 1 month, and about 4 to 5 months later, it came around and did its thing, got gigantic, came by, and went back out again. All right? So now here's what's happening now. Since I put out my DVD, the increased interest, and I'm not the only one, I don't mean to say that, but my timing was such that when I put it out, the interest went through the ceiling, and the multiples of tens and tens on this thing has become, originally it was like 3 or 4 little things. I put my DVD out and did a whole bunch of shows, and then in a short period of time, if you put up Bob Fletcher, Nibiru, Planet X, Bob Fletcher, in Unknown Planet, any of that, there's now like 2,000 hits for crap, 2,000 pages you could go to now. But the point is, the government now, as time is ticking away on this thing, they're starting to put people, like just the other day, CBS News came out and said there was this couple of astronomers that have seen Planet X. Let me correct myself. They think they located the thing that might be Planet X, and it's out there past Pluto. All right, and then the caveat to it was that they said it's like 1 million light years away. Okay, well, on that basis, nobody has to worry about it. Okay, now. Somebody else came out a little while back and did a similar thing. They said they literally have discovered in the last year, 2 years, let me put it 2 years, 1,100 planets that they never knew existed.
Yeah.
Not all in our solar system, but close enough or out there where they have been located. They have been named and numbered and taken pictures of some of them with a new telescope that they have, a couple of them now that they have out in outer space. All right, but what they're doing now, because they still have to defeat the idea that anybody on Earth living person on Earth has anything to worry about. So if they come out with some astronomer who's financially taken care of under the table, and he comes out and says, "Oh, we found this." Now the ones that came out. Excuse me. So, see, the ones that came out and said they found 2 planets and one together, and I don't know, whatever it was, just the one that was on CBS yesterday, actually, CBS Television News. Okay, but there's 2 caveats to that. Number one is that they indicate that it's so far away that just go back to sleep and you don't even have to worry. Your grandkids don't even have to worry about it. And if it was heading back at a gazillion miles an hour, it's still not going to be here for 1,000 years. Okay, so that was that. But additionally, that serves to throw cold water on anybody like me and the rest of the people out here, that are saying, hey, it's going to be in a year or so, because why are they putting all the food in the underground facilities? Mm-hmm. They don't want it to go bad. They didn't put it in until they need it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, right? And why do they have they're going to do the martial law thing? Oh, and let me anyhow. So I don't want to get off on another thing and miss my point. The point is when they see these, and then they come back and say, and it fits exactly what we consider to be this Planet X everybody's talked about. It's approximately the same size, and it's this, and it's out there past Pluto and all of that. But again, don't worry about it because it's going to take so long. But the other caveat to the last report was they said, we've not seen it yet. See, this big deal they made included news on CBS, right? They have not seen it. They're working on mathematical movements of other stars being pulled and affected by this big thing that we can't see. Cannot see. All right? Now, the bad guys, the government at the highest level, they can see it, folks. They have infrared telescopes with the capability to track it. Once it's close enough, and they have the telescopes are out there, way out by Pluto now, taking great pictures of Pluto, by the way. There's great brand new pictures of Pluto, all right, because they're right in the backyard. And they know damn well exactly where that thing is as we speak. But the guy in Omaha with a little scope at his university or wherever the heck, Kansas City, Omaha, Nebraska, they don't have the equipment. They're not seeing it. They said they don't see it. And so when you see people telling you that, oh, here is a picture of it right next to the moon, and it's the size of a golf ball, it would already be causing so much effect you couldn't go out at night and stand up. Now, I want to real quickly say a couple things before we run out of time. The DVD's available. Folks, go on to my website, just for Bob Fletcher, and you can find it. Put Nibiru Bob Fletcher, and you'll locate it. The point is that they're going to have to do martial law. It's going to be one of these three things. It'll either be financial crash, which we legitimately, by the way, are in the global financial crash, the worst it's been since before 1929 stock market.
Yep.
It's
the first one that's
everything.
Everything.
Right. Everything is crashing. All right. So it could be potentially on to control the people on a financial crash, or a synthetic thing relative to 3 or 4 major terrorist acts in the United States of America. Now, I'm talking real something serious like the 9/11 kind of a thing, big buildings coming down in a bunch of places. That's good enough so that every American will say, oh, thank God we've got martial law. It's got to be that bad. It has to be appearing to be that serious. But it is, or it could be a biological.
Right.
A terrorist/biological epidemic, major diseases, germs put into the air in 5 cities or some other outrageous thing, okay? And the other one now, the last one is the confrontation that would appear that we're going to get into World War III, regular World War III, like with Russia or China, all right? But those things are not going to happen either. China's not in a position to do anything like that. They are starving now. They're into a negative financial that they don't even know what to do about. All right, and by the way, I'm going to end with this. I'm working this entire last 9 months, 10 months on a new DVD follow-up report on this.
Awesome.
On the manner by which Nibiru Planet X can be stopped, and
that it can be stopped.
It includes a manner by which we could stop any potential World War atomic attack in a couple of seconds.
Hold on, did you say we can actually stop Nibiru from passing?
Yes, and that's going to be in the report. I've been literally working 8 to 10 hours a day for over 9 months on this thing.
I've got to do this.
I'm trying to get it done and get it out. It's going to freak everybody because it freaked me out when I discovered it more so than the fact that Nibiru might be coming in.
Yeah,
It's
when is
the,
this going to be coming out, Bob?
I don't see. I didn't want. I don't want any. Don't. I'll let everybody know.
Hold on a second. We do have 30 minutes left, so I'm just.
Okay. Oh, okay, fine. That's cool.
Okay, I just want to make sure that I don't want you to rush out of anything, so I just want to let you know we do have 30
now,
minutes left. Okay, good.
Okay, very good. Then I'll keep going from there then because there's a lot to cover still.
Please, I want you to. Yes.
Now, I'm not going to get into anything on that new report at all, and I have to on tonight. I can't any more than I have because until I finish and it's available, I don't want anybody's ordering it or talking to me about it. But it's something I'm working on now. It will be done shortly, and I will let you guys know right out in front. I'll send you copies of it.
Please.
But, it's going to be done this year, though, in the next few months, maybe.
Hopefully within 30 days.
Good. Oh, wow. Awesome.
And it's I'll tell you what is the most amazing thing that I've ever done once when I got into it. And I can't even go any farther than that. I don't want people to please don't be ordering it ahead of time or ask me to hold it for you, any of that kind of stuff. No, but see, you get in a real trick bag because then if something happens and it doesn't get out, then I have to send people money back and all that kind of stuff.
No, we don't.
It gets into a turmoil. I don't want any of that. We had a little bit of that on the other one before. It was kind of a pain in the neck, playing catch up pool, and I don't like doing that.
Exactly. No, I don't blame you.
But I simply will say that this is the most unbelievable combination of things that I have discovered, totally verified, completely, and it answers a multitude of questions on an awful lot of things that have been never answered and hanging in the air with our corrupted government. Now, all right, here's what I will say this now. In my DVD, the one incoming, the one that announced all of this stuff originally, I did something that everybody, all of my peers, said I was crazy because I kind of predicted stuff. There was, and it's not like some kind of a psychic predictions or anything like that. I don't mean it that. I'm not Nostradamus, but it was relative to the fact that if Nibiru was in fact coming back in as I do believe it is, and I hope that I'm wrong, but I said that as it comes in, now remembering this is 1 year ago in last January that I made it first available to the public, the DVD, and I said what you're going to see is the most outrageous weather in the history of the globe for the last 100 years. That's what's going to happen in 2015 and 2016. All right, I said with it because it's coming in, and like a bowling ball being rolled down into a bunch of pins. That's what it's doing as it comes with its little entourage of a couple of moons and all the junk it's pulling behind it. It's affecting like the entire solar system like a bowling ball. All right, it's pushing things away from it and forward away from it, causing. I said we were going to have the following events. If it appears that it is still coming during this whole last year of 2015 and as of today, that we would have extraordinary weather, we would have more tornadoes and hurricanes and blizzards and floods and droughts on the entire globe than we've had in 100 years. That is exactly what has taken place on the global weather. It's people talking like now. See, they pull this thing where they say, "Oh, what are they calling it? They got a name for it." Anyhow, they claim that the weather is being affected by a cyclical kind of situation, but that always affects only one coast or another. All right, it doesn't affect the entire globe, and that's what's happening. I also said that we would have increase in volcanoes. We now have probably didn't look at it, I should have looked it up. As we speak today, there's probably a minimum of 47 active volcanoes blowing inside their tops. They have one or two that is affecting the ocean temperature there's one off the coast of Oregon that's changed to where they're actually getting. Well, and nobody's talking about it, and they're blaming it. They're calling it the El Nino, right?
I heard that stuff would happen before anything that happened in like a Los Angeles or that whole area, like on the San Andreas fault line. I heard that. Yeah, that's what I.
See, what's taking place is we are having storms start all of last year off of the coast out there, like they were tropical, like a hurricane.
Yeah.
But you can't have a hurricane in cold water off of Oregon, but you can if there's a volcano underneath.
Exactly.
It's under the water, heating the temperature. Okay. Now, I also said and predicted that we would, like I say, have these extraordinary numbers of storms, etc. The sizes would be different. The one in Mexico a few months back was the biggest hurricane. Fortunately, it missed all major cities, but it was the biggest hurricane ever in the history of Mexico. Came in through the coast now, and it was gigantic storm that came in. As we speak tonight, it's the biggest snowstorm blizzard in 150 years in New York City. All right, it's going to wipe out New Jersey also, just like that other storm did Sandy a couple of years ago. They're still not even recuperated from that. New Jersey coastline, the day after tomorrow, will be wiped out like it was sitting in the middle of a tornado. These are all storms. The quakes, the numbers of earthquakes have increased 5 times what they normally are, all around the globe.
Yep.
And by the way, quakes, the earthquakes and volcanoes are related. When you get a given number of earthquakes, you can almost triangulate, draw lines between them, and you'll find that a volcano will be popping up, sticking its head up within 30 days of the swarms on these. A swarm of earthquakes will equal a volcano, and it's got to do with the stress on the overall crust. Now, here's where, and I put this in the incoming DVD, the report. I put this very clearly and explained it too, that what I found out when I was doing the investigation on this thing, and again, this is one of the things also that was like a tip the scale that I told myself that you have to do this report. Even if you're wrong, you have to do it. The planets, starting out by Pluto, all right, are all being affected. Now, they had already started to be affected back when I put this thing out 1 year ago, but they are now worse and being more affected than previously. Now, what I'm talking about is all of the planets as far out as Pluto, and including Pluto, is having a change in their atmospheres, the ones that have what we would call an atmosphere, change in the gas, change in the some of their orbits are being affected. They're wiggling, so to speak, or jiggling or vibrating in their orbits, changing a little bit. The storms, some of the storms on the face of these planets are changing. Some of them, like one big one on Saturn, I think it is, on Saturn that has been there for like 400 years. That storm is changing and getting bigger and then getting smaller and having variations to it. There is an atmosphere of salt, a salt-type content, sodium.
Yeah, on the moon.
On the moon. Never been before. All of a sudden, they now have a haze type of an atmosphere circling the moon, and it is a sodium content. All right? So every one of them is, and then, of course, I don't even want to get into, I'm trying to think, it's either Venus, and this is where somebody's going to say, well, you don't know which one is which. It's either Venus or Jupiter, whichever, I'm not positive, but the ice cap on it, on the poles, there's a pole ice cap on both the North and the South Pole. It's melting. Well, excuse me, I actually think it's Mars. But anyhow, it's melting the same as ice caps on Earth is doing. And by the way, the melting, this is another thing people are not paying attention to, even though, of course you got the groups, and I know they jump up and down and yelling and, change of the, the warming, the warming of the Earth, and that too many cows are farting nitrogen and things of that sort.
No, most of the planets are going through this.
Here's the point, though. The glaciers on Earth a couple of years ago, and escalating rapidly, are melting like crazy. Now, to give you an idea of how bad the ice caps are on Earth right now, melting, and the glaciers running into, and the glaciers are melting kind of like from underneath. In other words, it's sort of like the globe on Earth is being heated a little from inside or something. It's very strange because they're melting like from underneath, like inside the shell of the ice coverage.
You're right.
Okay, Mars.
Yeah, I just looked it up. Yep.
All right, good. So, the point is, the glaciers are melting so rapidly on Earth as we speak that in Miami 2 years ago, they had to start putting pumps into the city of Miami Beach because every high tide is moving back then, now a year and a half ago, 4 blocks into the city of Miami Beach. The regular high tide now is moving into the Miami Beach city itself by about 4 blocks. Now, they put the pumps in. They cost millions of dollars. They literally switch on with the high tides to pump the water away and try to keep it out of the stores and the hotels. All right? Now, what also is going on since then, it has continued to be so bad that in Miami Beach, they are actually, I'm trying to figure out how they're doing this, they're actually raising the street level like 10 feet in all of Miami Beach. It's a gigantic multi-billion-dollar investment to try and raise the elevation up enough so that everything won't be totally wiped out in 2 years. So that's how serious the melting of the glaciers are. And my contention, along with that of many of the other scientists that have been involved with studying Nibiru for 20 years themselves, know much more about it than I do. The contention is that all of these things that I'm talking about, including the planetary activity all the way out to Pluto, and then coming back in towards the sun, that's all the effects of Nibiru starting to affect the system, all right, including speeding up the heating of the ice caps on the planet Earth. Now, the sun is being affected already by it, all right, and see everything something we don't think about, and unless you're really a scientist and involved with this type of stuff on a regular basis, you don't even you just don't think about these things. But in the solar system, it's kind of like you think of it as a big bathtub, okay? So if you get a whole bathtub just filled with water, and you put 10 ping pong balls floating in there, and that's representing the planets, all right? And now you get it completely calm. You got the little ping pong balls floating on the top of it. Drop a golf ball on one end of the bathtub, and what happens? It affects every single one of the planets, and vice versa. All right. If one of those ping pong balls represents Earth and it's at the far side of the bathtub, if you drop that golf ball in there, you're going to be bouncing that ping pong ball. I can't even say that around in the bathtub like crazy. Any little activity of an extraordinary, it's almost like an infection on the human body. Anything that comes in and intrudes into our solar system that's not part of it on a regular basis is going to cause a radical effect. The sun is doing crazy things. It's developing holes like they've never seen before on the surface of the sun. 2 years ago, by the way, one of those electromagnetic impulses from the solar flare came out, and it was huge, and we missed it. Our orbit permitted us to happen to miss that impulse, the solar flare that came off, and this is approximately, like I say, a year and a half, 2 years ago when that happened. We missed it by 1 week on our orbit around the sun, all right? And if we had been struck by it, it would have fried, that electromagnetic force would have fried every satellite ahead of time, but it would have also wiped out all electrical functioning on the globe for probably 100 years. And this is a reality that the head of the Homeland Security, Janet Napolitano, when she quit 2 years ago, one of the last speeches she made was that one of these electromagnetic impulses of solar flare will hit the Earth within a few years, and not maybe, but will. And when it does, it will terminate the electrical on the globe, depending on what side of the Earth it hits, for as much as 100 years, because it will fry everything, all the generators, and also this is the type of thing you could expect with the passing of Nibiru when it comes close enough. It would be the equivalent of one of these solar flares, potentially, and it would fry all electrical functioning on the globe, at least or on half of the globe, but we're so interfaced, the possibility it would affect everything. But it will burn, it will burn every generator, every transmission line, every transmitting substation, every power plant. Just the whole ball of wax will be gone.
Cell towers, all that stuff.
Well, everything. And the point is, so what would happen is it's not like we know how angry we get if the power's down for. I mean, if it's down for 30 minutes, we throw stuff at the television. If it's down, you're running around looking for candles, all that kind of stuff. If it's down for a week, you really seriously have problems. But we can't perceive total non-electrical life in America for a year or 10 or 50, because the big power plants that would have to totally replace these generators, there are not enough of them to do it.
No, I agree with that.
Not enough. I mean, well, it's a scientific.
It's not even close.
No, it's not. It's a scientific reality. Now, the last time we had one big one from the sun that did hit was like in 1865 or something like that, about that period of time. And anything that was electrical, we didn't have much electricity at that time. Right. Anything, although all the wires that were up for the telegraph and all that stuff, all of that was melted. So whatever we had, and again, fortunately, we didn't have much. But in today's life, every single thing is electrical. And the banking, boom, banking's gone. Everything's gone. No fuel, no cars, no light.
You're right. You are right.
No way to pump. No way to get gas. They can't pump anything.
Can't pump.
You can't drive.
You don't have the light.
Can't drive anything. It would be, we're really talking spooky stuff. Now I was in Atlanta one year when part of that grid went down, for 8 hours or something like that.
Yep.
And I mean, when everything goes, it's really spooky stuff. I mean, and of course, like I say, even the banking and everything. See, whatever money you got in the bank, which is only a numerical electronic number anyhow until you pull it out, that's gone.
Absolutely.
There's even a good chance. See, there's even a good chance.
Bitcoin and all that stuff. That's all done by.
Everything.
That's all gone.
Yeah. All gone. And think about this briefly. The possibility is that the money, because it is strictly computerized memory banks, with a solar flare, depending on how bad and where it hits, all of that could be totally erased. Mm-hmm. You don't have any money, sir. Sorry. Say you had 200,000 you had in your life savings. Oh, sorry about that.
That will happen, you're saying, if when Nibiru passes?
Very,
very likely the same kind of an effect.
Yeah, I mean, even solar flares could cause this. If we have big enough solar flares.
Oh, sure.
Chaos,
solar flares can happen by themselves, solar flares. All right? And again, I mentioned earlier, we just don't think about that, the possibility. And it's so possible.
It would really cause chaos, but it wouldn't. I doubt it would ruin every electronic on the planet. It would probably just do one side of the planet.
Well, yeah, probably that.
Financial.
No, I agree with that.
Up. But it would still cause chaos. It would
well,
absolutely.
Well, just if you try to imagine life in America, I mean, we wouldn't care much about the other side of the globe anyhow if it was us. In other words, if it blows us out, takes all of our electrical actions down. Try to imagine what life would be like, let's just say, for 6 months. But what they've been talking about, if it was a major volume and hit a lot, broadside of the United States, North America, South America, you're talking about possibly 100 years to get back. That's outrageous.
They claim that the transformers that would blow out from a solar flare,
everything.
We would have to completely reorder. We would have to order the parts, and they would have
Where are you going to order the parts? How are you going to order parts?
Right, exactly. China would have to build them, and it would take 3 years to build them.
How are you going to ship them? See?
Right.
You can't pump gas. Oh, see, you got to realize it. And what happens first off? No medical services.
Very carefully, Bob.
No emergency anything. No police.
Nothing.
No. You want to talk about gangbangers? You want to talk about invasions?
That's perfect time for them to do that. Yes.
Manually pour out the whole.
I mean, it's something that that most people say. Well, I don't even want to think about it. Right. They just don't want to even put any thoughts out there.
Well, people like us want to put thought into it because we actually give a crap about it. But
yeah, right.
That's why I want to move up to Maine.
With people
come up to Maine, everyone.
As far away from the population as possible, dude.
Yeah.
Seriously, it's going to be The Walking Dead when this happens.
As a matter of fact, there was two people that said that. Napolitano did it, head of Homeland Security. See, they've done huge calculated reports and scientific investigations on these things to the possibilities and stuff. And it was a big speech for her. One of the last things she did leaving the Homeland Security a couple of years ago, she said, it's going to happen. It's not if, it's just when. And how bad it is depends on how the wind blows. Whether it's 2 years or 102. And I mean,
it's going to happen.
Turn us into cavemen, for crying out loud.
Yeah.
In
this society, we're screwed.
I have some days where I think that some of us would be better as cavemen. I really do. It's kind of like a start over, like a reset switch. I mean, I don't know.
Well, it's like cleaning a slate. But see, the problem is the way things are now in the criminality.
Yeah, that's.
Who's going to do what? The biggest crooks in Washington are going to do whatever they can do, and they'll be out. They would be down in their underground facilities. Yeah, they got generators down there, and they got fuel, and they got
all set.
Oh yeah, that's the stuff we were talking about earlier. They'll be down. Even if it was not a Nibiru situation, if you had a solar flare that devastated America.
They're all set. We're up here like burning up, and they're like
that's the reason that they gave the weapons to the people who are going to do martial law, and they'll be enforcing it blindly, with the exception of the ones that finally realize that, hey, wait a minute, we're guarding the rat holes, entrances to the underground facilities where the rich people are having martinis.
One thing interesting about martial law is that Zeta Talk site. I remember 15 years ago when I first read it. They claimed that towards the end, before Nibiru passes, the government's going to attempt to declare martial law, and it's going to fail, and the people aren't going to accept it. And in the end, we're going to rise up against the government once we realize that the government is
with what? See, the problem is if Nibiru is what it is and comes and does what it would do. Again, we're talking Noah's floods over again.
Right. So what do we do?
And best effort for yourself.
Right. Right.
I mean, that's a reality.
It will be the people along with the military.
Take care of yourself.
Because the military are going to want to take care of themselves too, and their families.
Exactly.
They're not going to do it.
This is a point where you got to look out for yourself.
That's all it amounts to. And again, the bottom line is, it's like you really start saying, well, how many? It's 140 million people, I think, is a population within 25 miles of the coastline around the United States.
Yeah.
They'll all be gone in the first 15 minutes.
Yeah, then that's why martial law is going to fail, because the soldiers.
It might.
100%,
but I guess I have to ask you, what's your point? In other words, they're going to be going underground, locked off. The doors that seal these things off are like there's 6 of them in a row, 4 feet wide, be able to handle a nuclear bomb in the front yard of the darn thing. See, so between you and I, it's like the martial law would be only to guarantee that they can get on their buses and airplanes and get the hell out of town and get to wherever they're going to go.
Yep.
See, and then after that,
that's a great point. Great point right there.
After that, they got everything they need, probably for 25 years. Now, they may have to be in there longer. I don't know, and I don't care. But they have what's necessary to maintain X numbers of people in a given hole in the ground for a 25-year period of time. Food, communications, all of that underground, enough fuel to run the generators and the air filters and all of that crap under there. And probably, see, there are direct, which is the only one thing, I don't know this, but I'm making a speculation now. you can see the films and the videos and the pictures that I have.
What's our website, Bob? Because we only have a minute left.
Okay, Bob Fletcher.
We don't have
we
to
do it again.
Yeah, go
Bob
ahead.
Fletcher. BobFletcherInvestigations.com. That's all. Bob Fletcher. You can punch Bob Fletcher, Nibiru, and then eventually you'll be able to get to it anyhow. Like I said, there's probably 2,000 hits on that thing now.
Awesome.
I mean,
okay,
on
Bob,
the people
do. We have 5 minutes left. Sorry, I thought we only had a minute.
Okay, that's all right. All right, so there's not much more I can say. I will say this, which I said all of my interviews. I hope I'm wrong. I would love to be for like 2 years from now, do a show again, and and have you just say, "Boy, you're the biggest jerk in town."
Well, no, Bob. You know what? I don't think it's going to happen in the next couple of years. I think it's going to happen in like 8 years, because, like you said in the Bible, I think they're going to do the whole 7-year tribulation and then finish it off with Jesus in the sky.
But you have to understand something. We've been into that, depending on how you want to classify it.
True.
See, the tribulation's already started. Exactly when, I don't know. See how you could put a day on that.
You can't.
What we're going through now and all the rest of the junk, what's taking place in terms of this snowstorm that's supposed to be, you know what they're expecting over there as we speak, starting in about 1 more hour? Where are you guys calling from?
Where are you calling?
Pennsylvania.
I'm calling from Maine, so the snowstorm veered off before it got to me, but I think Jeff got it up there.
Okay, let me tell you. Here's what's happening right now. 200,000 people are already out of electricity over there, and it hasn't even started yet.
I know.
All right? Yeah. They're expecting 70-mile-an-hour winds along the coast, and they're expecting 3 to 3.5 feet of snow in some places, with drifts of 6 feet because of the winds, followed by an ice storm.
I'm lucky we're missing it.
They're in a state of emergency. There's 5 states, I think, that are declared state of emergency and shut down. All the planes have been interrupted. Totally shut down from out of there, 7,000.
Thousands of plane delays. My friend is in Seattle, and he's actually sitting in an airport right now, waiting to come back to Boston because he's flying into Boston. Of course, Boston isn't getting affected by it, but they still have to.
You mean not yet? Not yet. You see, the storm is moving. It's coming up from the south, and with problems also coming from the east, from the ocean in, It's going
we can't completely trust what the weathermen say anyway, because how many times...
Well, no, that's true. The only thing that I did, just because of my own interest, I used to live in New Jersey many years ago for a long time, but Jersey had they never repaired from that 4 or 5 years ago.
They never did. They didn't anything. They barely did anything.
Right. Well, they're about to get hit identical again.
Dude, they're fucked. Right. I said that this morning. I was talking to a friend, and I was like, New Jersey, out of all the people, with everything that happened before, to me, they're fucked. Excuse my language, but that is the word that I'm going to use for this, because I think that's a perfect word.
And I looked at, just before we started talking, I had looked at the updated satellite picture of the storm, and it's gigantic. It's like that one they had a little while back. The storm goes from Nashville, Tennessee shut down, and it goes from Nashville to the northern side of New York State. My God, it's huge. It's covering states and states and states. I don't remember what the number was, people being involved, but it's just millions and millions of people. Again, they're even expecting like a follow-up in another day or two of it becoming an ice storm, and with 50-mile-an-hour winds, I mean, it's going to knock all the lines down. It's just unbelievable. It's just going to be a mess. I don't know what's going to happen. It's not going to go away. It's too big. Gigantic storm. But anyhow, so much for that. Somebody the other day told me the problems on the West Coast was because it was El Nino. I just told him today, I said El Nino's on the other coast now, so
right.
I was joking with him, the El Nino's moved across the other side of the coast, so I don't know what you're going to blame this one on. But the bottom line is, somebody said, I'll tell you what, the head of NASA was asked in front of the Congress last year, what do we do if all of a sudden we saw a real big planetary object coming in towards Earth?
Yeah.
And the head of NASA paused and he said, pray. He just said pray.
Yeah, what kind
That
of?
was his response.
Do you even have do you trust the head of NASA to make it?
Oh no. But I thought that was pretty
I didn't
appropriate.
think you did.
You know,
I agree with that too. No, I agree with that. Yeah.
but the truth is, on the new DVD I'm working on, there is an alternate, and you're going to find out what it is when I get that finished.
You know, Bob, I've been thinking this for years, something like that, and I don't know. I hope I'm not thinking the same exact thing as you are, because I don't want to. But you don't have to tell me if I suspect if we all like somehow not prayed, but we can like somehow some sort of meditation, and we can magnetically influence this thing. That's my thought.
So you'll see something that it's going to really. You'll see a bunch of things that are going to really surprise you on the new report when we get the thing done.
I can't wait.
You told me about that, and I can't wait for that.
I cannot.
And I have to absolutely say this. This last DVD, obviously the Nibiru is, it's pretty intense, and I know it's pretty well done. I can't tell you. Matter of fact, I'm doing a translated interview for Russia in probably this week.
Yes. That's awesome. Awesome.
And I have people from every corners of the world have gotten my DVD.
Awesome.
I mean, all over places I didn't even know where the heck they were. Zanzibar.
Good.
You know,
good.
places. I'm serious.
That's very encouraging, Bob. That's
well, it's encouraging. It's only that it's finally opened up some people's eyes to the possibilities. And I wanted the big deal. I wanted people to know how corrupted our government is. It's so bad.
Thank you.
What's terrible is that the new one I'm doing it's going to even show you more corruption. That's mind-boggling.
You know, honestly, Bob, I don't want to see any more corruption. But if you're going to bring it to the fore,
it's part. Unfortunately, it's part and parcel to everything.
It is. If you want to bring it out and show me, I am absolutely down for that, because that just adds more fire to the arsenal, and that's going to get us going even more. So if you can do that, appreciate it.
You're going to see some things that make your hair fall out, and
I don't want my hair to fall out. But
okay. Well then, maybe look. Watch it with just one eye, and you.
Bob, I'm only 34 here, man. I don't need my hair to fall out. So
please. No, you don't want to do that. Well, and what's terrible when you become an old geezer like myself. You can't do stuff. You can't do stuff, like you used to. It's just the way it is, because your batteries are running down, And but your head stays the same,
Your head does stay the same.
Yeah, your thoughts, processes, and all that stays the same.
Your mind, your thought process, and you know what? That's what's important to me. As long as you're still thinking, that's great.
Yeah.
And that's what I like about you, man, because you're still there, dude, and you're just. I love it, man. That's why I had you on again, because I was like, I got to get Bob back on, because I really want to hear what he has to say. I mean, we had
it's great.
We had Masters come on and talk about Planet X, and it was a little different than what you had to say, but I'm kind of swaying towards what you have to say, because you actually break it down. You give a whole background on how you came up on this and everything, and that's what I appreciate. And Marshall kind of didn't do that, and. So
I just, like I say, originally, I got when all of a sudden it dawned on me, I said that this probably is what it is, and originally it was hard to push myself to complete the thing, but then I say, oh, okay, how about this, and now I have this, and now we have the Pope, and now we got the telescope there, and now we got that, and we got that, and now they're not answering this, and this is happening with that, and everything just. It's like a big puzzle, and you don't understand what it is until you get 90% of it done. Then you can kind of make it out, and it all just kept going in the same direction. That these guys just wouldn't do all this crazy stuff if it wasn't scaring them very seriously. They would rather steal money and put it in their own pocket. So.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, listen, how are we on time? I guess we're about done. Should I say goodbye to everybody?
So we got to wrap up, but totally appreciate you coming on, staying on for extra time, and I would love to get you back on in this year, 2000.
Well, I'll tell you, as soon as I get this other one done, I'll get you guys copies, and then we'll go from there, because it's gonna raise as many eyebrows as the last one did.
Yeah, we got to have you on as soon as you put that out.
No, just let me know.
Okay.
Email me. Let me know. Keep in touch, and definitely we'll get you back on because we definitely want you back on here. There's no doubt about that.
Alrighty. Good.
Definitely.
Thank you. Had fun. You guys have a good evening for the rest of the day.
You too. And, thank you so much.
All right. Good. Take care.
Thanks, Bob. Have a good evening. Have a good weekend.
Thank you. So, anyhow, I then started looking in a multitude of directions. And again, the bottom line was, what is it that would scare the heads of government? Oh, and by the way, I say heads of government because I found out Russia in 2010 or 9, around that period of time, put out an internal to a mandate to have 5,000 smaller underground facilities. Actually, you could almost call them bomb shelters, if you will, survival.
Same thing.
But now not as big as the ones I'm talking about here in the United States, where they got 18-wheelers and trains running around them. Okay, but they had a mandate to complete within 2013, January 2013, a couple years ago, to have 5,000 of these finished in Russia. Now, they do have some big ones, one of which, by the way, will hold 50,000 people underground in Russia in a mountain. All right. Yeah. That's bigger, probably. I think the biggest one we have is probably maybe pushing it to 20,000, but there's a couple of them that could handle 10,000 underground. But they have one that'll hold 50 to 60,000 people, and then several other smaller ones. The smaller ones literally are pretty much for not the elite. In other words, it's a secondary thing, maybe for the lucky upper crust, that to save some of the general public, but they're not really big, et cetera, et cetera. Now, so it reached a point where I'm saying, okay, and Europe also did the same thing. They've got many good-sized underground facilities. So the next question is, what's going on? Why was it that all the thieves up in the Congress and the Senate, and et cetera, in the military, upper crust, why did they all of a sudden stop lining their pockets directly and worry about underground? Why would they go underground? And so that's where we linked and put together the obvious, which was that the Nibiru, Planet X, is heading back. And that was, in fact, the reason for going underground. Now, at the same time, all along, going back to the 90, 95, and that period of time, was when the government was started supplying the sheriff's department and all of the different military sheriffs and police stations, et cetera, around with military equipment, grenade launchers, armored vehicles, water tanks, machine guns, tanks, bullets, weapons of all sorts and everything. They started putting these out to police stations and sheriff departments, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, and everybody said, well, what's going on with that? What's the connection to that? And the connection is this. And by the way, also when I checked into the Vatican, they're completely up to speed on this. That was why they put in the big infrared telescope in Arizona called Lucifer. The reason they put that in and everything, it's all part of and parcel to this whole thing of keeping an eye on it. And they have been aware of it for many, many years and still are, and participating at the highest level of keeping this thing quiet. Now, here's the problem. And because a lot of people say, well, when are they going to tell us? When can we, first off, they say, when can we see it? Next one is, when's it coming? When do we expect it to be coming back in real time? And when are they going to tell us what's going to happen? This is bad. We're not going to know about it. Well, the truth is, no, you are not going to know about it. And you will never have a formal, my fellow American speech from the President of the United States unless it is at the very last point in time and at that time, he and everybody else will be underground already. Okay, they'll be gone, and the speech that would come out, if there ever is one, will be literally the last day's speech, so to speak, before it's about to hit, or it's not going to hit. That's a I don't mean to say that, but it's coming close to passing close to Earth. They have no intentions of ever telling the people of the globe that that's happening for real. So
they're going to use it to depopulate the planet if they want to, supposedly.
Right. So no. So here, but here's
No.
here's what happens. Here's what's physically happening, and why this comes back to the weapons going to the police force. What they're going to have to do is declare martial law in the United States before the Planet X Nibiru is starting to be seen in the sky. Once it's seen in the sky, headed in to go around the sun and then back out for another several hundred or couple thousand years, whatever it is, all right, when it comes in, it'll be first seen as a star, like a new star. And it'll be coming in, it'll get brighter and brighter and bigger, and it will take about 3 to 4 months from the time it's seen in the sky for it to come around to its closest point, passing around the sun and then headed back out. Now, again, I mentioned Gil Broussard, who has real good studies on this thing, has done, and he's the one who went to China and has been doing the complete scriptural thing and can match up every single event to this thing with documentation of ancient times around the globe. So this is not just a handful of idiots someplace coming up with a funny story. All right. So here's where it has always been when it came closest to where it actually passes and blocks the sun, does an eclipse of the sun for a brief period of time, and then goes on around and goes back out. All right. That has always been around March, April period of time. March the 25th or 27th is usually approximately the period of time of most close to the planet Earth. All right. So also the mathematics of this is that it would be probably seen in the sky in December. Now, originally, and now there are a lot of miscellaneous variables in this thing. Changes in the calendars, the calendars of antiquity. They changed their method of counting days, and like you said, how many days, and back then versus how many days now for a month, and all that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of little variables, and it's kind of a little bit. Again, I refer like to Halley's Comet. Give or take, in that case, it's only usually about give or take a week. That comes around 75 years. When you have one that has an orbit of an unknown, maybe like you say, 350 to 3,000 years, the time of its return is always been, though, March and April, that period of time, the merger between March and April, and seen in December. I anticipated that we would see it this December, last month, all right? That did not happen. And I also noted that there was no martial law, although they're setting it up. They're setting that up really profusely. They have to simply come up with one of 2 or 3 ideas that will be accommodated by the American people to accommodate and accept a martial law.
Right.
All right, and I'll get to
either an economic collapse or ISIS.
Yeah, and I'll get to that in just a second. But the point in time, here's the point. It always has been a March, April kind of period of time on the previous 2 passes of this thing that have been found in the writings of biblical times and the writings of antiquities of Chinese, the Chinese monks, the monks in Tibet, and the Chinese people that actually were the astronomers for the Emperor of China. And they were very serious, and over there, if the astronomers did misinterpretations, the emperor cut their heads off. So they weren't making up anything either. They were pretty serious going back 1,000 years or whatever. So here's my point. When people say, when is expected? All right, those people, even that differ with each other as to whether it's a 350 or a 3,500 time period, that doesn't make any difference. Politically, on the globe, the underground facilities are finished. They are still working on a lot of them, but most of them are finished. If they needed them next week, they could use them, all right? That's my point. They are filled with food. They are still putting food in and doing everything, final touch-ups on all of them. One of them, by the way, was the old NORAD facility that had been in a granite mountain for years.
Ah.
Unbelievable secured location. But that's an old one. And they went in, closed it down a while back, about a year and a half ago, did some changes to it, and they've now moved back into it. They're using it. However, NORAD, the normal old function of NORAD, is not being carried out anymore. It is another one of the underground facilities. The newer ones are astronomical. They're mind-boggling, like I said, with maglev trains, food growing ability, interfacing connections between one side of the nation to the other side in terms of underground roadways. And China also, I left them out. China has done the same thing. China started a few years ago, and they have thousands of miles of underground facilities. They built digging. We have a huge tunneling machines. And people say, how in the world do they dig into the granite mountain and finish this in a year? They have underground digging equipment that I also have. By the way, I have to say this. All of this that I'm talking about and much, much more, including